the banks have been exposed to the credit risk. And in that process, it is imperative upon all the banks that they need to manage these risks. So coming to the concept of credit management, we have two different terminologies. One is credit, one is management. What is the meaning of it and what is the meaning of it? What is the meaning of credit and what is the meaning of management? By credit, we generally mean the loans and advances that are being provided by the bank. And as you know, the loans and advances are basically being provided on a periodical basis. As per the requirement of the loanee is supposed to take the loan for the time period for which it is required by him or by her. So accordingly, when we think of the loans and advances being provided by the bank on the basis of time period, we have two major types of loans and advances, which we generally call as the short-term loans or advances, and the second one is your medium and long-term loans and advances. Short-term loans and advances, whereby the loans and advances are basically being provided for a period of not exceeding 1 year. Medium
Excuse me, sir. Which is second one? Second one is, sir.
Second one is medium and long-term loans and advances.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So short-term means the loan which is supposed to be taken for a period not exceeding 1 year. At best, up to 1 year, whatever loan is being provided, that will be included under short-term loans. For a period ranging between 1 year to 3 years, the loan is considered as medium term. And for a period exceeding 3 years, the loan is considered to be long term. And loans and advances are used synonymically, although they differ in some way or the other.
Sir, what was written, long-term loans or what is it?
Advances.
No, sir. Before that, what is that?
Medium or long-term loans and advances.
Yes, sir.
Apart from it, the credit also includes certain off-balance sheet transactions. Off-balance sheet transactions. That means transactions which are not supposed to be reflected in the balance sheet. It is basically in the form of certain commitments, certain guarantees being provided by the banks, which we generally call as the non-fund based advances, non-fund based loans. They are also included under the credit category. So credit includes.
Sir, is that mortgage?
It's not mortgage, it's commitment or the guarantee by the bank. As I said to you, basically the non-fund based advances or loans are basically being included under this off balance, like letter of credit, bank guarantee, or if any transaction related to factoring, they are considered to be under the off balance because they are not being reflected in the balance. Or suppose they invest in certain financial derivatives, whereby derivatives are basically in the form of futures or forwards. That means prior to the transaction, you need to enter into an agreement and you agree to purchase a security at a certain price in some future date. That means you have not yet paid. So those transactions are included under the off-balance sheet transactions. So these three are included under credit. Then comes what management is all about. So management first of all includes the pre-sanction appraisal. We have already pointed out it while discussing in the last class regarding the loan policy, credit evaluation, the first point. So before the loan gets sanctioned, appraisal has to be done by the credit department to ensure whether the prospective loan proposer is having the oath to be sanctioned or not. So before the loan gets sanctioned, a pre-sanction appraisal is taking place and it is done by the credit department of the bank. So that is one form of your management. The second one is your documentation. We have already pointed it out that once the appraisal gets the nod from the credit department, once the approval of the credit is done, the next step is to evaluate or examine the documents which are supposed to be attached with the loan proposal. So whatever documents are required, those documentations will be made, because basing upon those documentation, the ultimate loan will be disbursed or will be finally given. Then third one is disbursement and disbursal. Disbursement and disbursal. Disbursement, as I have already pointed out in the last class, there are certain loans are there which are generally being provided on an installment basis, be it the housing loan, be it the educational loan. So certain loans are being provided in installment basis. So those will be considered under the term disbursement. Disbursal means the final disbursal. So it is also a part of management. In what periodical intervals the loan will be disbursed, and at what point of time the final disbursal of the loan will take place, that is being included under the management concept.
So disposal meaning of it again?
Disbursal means the final provision of the loan amount. Once you finally, as a bank, you finally give all the loan amounts that constitute the disbursal. And as I have already pointed out, that the repayment starts after disbursal. When the full loan amount is being provided, then the repayment starts. So in this step, the entire loan has been given. Now the repayment will start. But it is the responsibility of the credit department that they need to monitor the loan, the utility of the loan, the use of the loan. So last one is your post-sanction supervision and control. Post-sanction supervision and control. Once the loan gets disbursed finally, it is the responsibility of the credit department of the bank that they need to supervise whether the loan, for the purpose for which the loan was being sanctioned, is being utilized for the same purpose or not. Whether the loan after being utilized for the purpose is able to generate the revenue or not. And accordingly, controlling measures can be taken. So continuous monitoring, continuous control must have to be done by the credit department. So these four basically constitutes the management in the credit management section.
The second one is management role.
Both sanction, supervision and control. Management, the second one is documentation.
Okay.
First one is pre-sanction appraisal. Second one is documentation. Third one is disbursement and disbursal. Fourth one is post-sanction supervision and control. Got it? So this is the basic of credit management. Shall I remove it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, apart from this, in today's time period, the credit management also includes certain other aspects. Under credit, we have already pointed out what are the things which are being included. Under management, we have discussed what are the things which are being included. But apart from that, in the modern day time period, particularly since 1988, there are certain other areas which should be looked at while trying to manage the credit. The first such thing is capital adequacy norms. Do you know what capital adequacy is all about? We generally call it as the CRAR. CRAR stands for capital to risk weighted assets ratio. As we have already pointed out,
Sir, one second, the full form.
Capital to risk weighted assets ratio. Capital to risk weighted assets ratio. Now, as we have already pointed out in the last
Sorry, sir, not getting properly. Capital, then R for
risk weighted.
Achha, capital.
Capital to risk weighted. A for assets. Then last R for ratio.
Okay, sir.
So generally what happens, assets as you know, basically are those which generates income for the owner. And in case of banking, the loans generally generate some revenue for the banks. So loans are considered to be assets, or the credit is considered to be an asset. But every asset is being attached with some risk. Therefore, RBI has come out with providing weightage to each and every asset. Depending upon the magnitude of risk which is being involved in the assets are being weighted as per RBI. Wherever there is less risk attached to the asset, the weightage being given is less. And wherever risks are more, the weightage is more. The importance of this is that whenever the banks go on to provide credit facilities, they need to keep a certain portion of that loan amount in the form of provisions. And it is a mandatory provision which every bank all across the world must have to maintain. Suppose they are paying 100 rupees in the form of loan and the capital adequacy ratio is supposed to be 11%. So they need to keep a provision for 11 rupees before they disperse a loan of 100 rupees. In that process, they can ensure that since they have made the provision of for 11 rupees, that 11 rupees will accumulate to some 15 rupees or 14 rupees in the time period for which the loan is being given. As a result of which, if because of any mishappenings, the loan does not get repaid or the loan gets defaulted, then the bank can ensure it has not lost the entire 100 rupees. Rather, it has already got 14 or 15 rupees out of it through the provisions. That is the reason why they need to make provisions for all kinds of loans as well as investments. Because investment is also in the form of a credit, because that generates some income for the bank. So it is an asset for the bank. So that CRAR must have to be maintained by all the banks. It's an international banking supervision or international banking norm, which all the banks in the world must have to maintain. So they need to maintain a provision pertaining to the CRAR while providing loans. So in the credit management, this is one of the major areas. So particularly to manage credit risk, this concept was being introduced in 1988. When it was introduced, the percentage was 8%. Now it has increased to nearly 12%. 12 to 30.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
The full form of the CRAR.
Capital to risk weighted assets ratio.
Capital
To risk weighted assets ratio.
Thank you, sir.
Then second one is your asset liability management. This is also being included under the credit management. You need to manage the risk, particularly the assets and liabilities, while trying to manage the credit risk. Because credit is one of the major part of the bank. There the bank is exposed to some risk. If because of some mishappenings, the credit gets defaulted, the bank will have to lose. For that, the bank needs to ensure that through the liability management, they can make up with the loss. So this asset liability management also constitute in the modern day also constitute a part of the credit management. Then comes the exposure norms. Whatever exposure the credit has being attached to it, for that certain norms have to be maintained, and these norms are being provided by RBI either or by the International Banking Supervision Committee. So those exposure norms are mandated to be abided by all the banking institutions while dealing with credit management. So this is also being included in the modern day under the credit management. Then comes the credit risk rating. Credit risk rating means it is the rating agencies. We generally call them as the credit rating agencies. And all the credits are basically being rated. As I have already pointed out that all the assets is having some weightage being attached to it. and the weightage is being provided by RBI depending upon the risk factor to which the asset is being exposed to. And accordingly, each and every credit facility, each and every loan is being rated. The better the rate, the will indicate the less is the risk. The worse the rate indicates the higher is the risk. So if as a banking institution you find that there has been a good rating, suppose you are trying to give loan to an organization whereby the organization has got a better credit rating from the rating agency. Better credit rating indicates that the organization is having the ability to repay the credit amount in time. That means by providing loans to that organization, the bank can ensure the repayment of the funds. So there the bank can provide more amount to the organization because they know that the organization is having a good credit rating. But those organizations which do not have a good credit rating, they are not being allowed to be provided with more amount of loans. It is one part in case of loans. In case of investments also, the instruments or the securities which are being issued by the private companies, the securities are also being rated by the credit rating agencies. That means the rating of the security will indicate you what is the probability that investment in such securities will fetch you the expected return. And the better the rate an instrument gets, the better is the probability that the instrument will fetch you the expected return. So you can go to invest in those securities where you find that the securities are having a good credit rating by the international credit rating agencies. The international credit rating agencies are considered to be independent bodies, and they basically give an unbiased rating, not biased. So, from the loan perspective, you need to look at the credit risk analysis, you need to look at the credit risk rating, and from the investment point of view, as a banking institution, when you go on to invest the public fund, you also need to look at this credit risk rating.
The international rating agency is Moody.
Yeah, Moody is one of the agencies, and some other agencies are also there. CRISIL is another agency. CRISIL is basically a joint venture between the foreign agency as well as an Indian agency. Fitch rating. Fitch is considered to be what?
sir rating खराब हेले इंटरेस्ट ऊपर इफेक्ट पड़िबो त
रेटिंग खराब हेले जदि आपण लोन दउछन्ती से जागा को से ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को चांस अछि लोन पड़ी जाय तेनु रेटिंग देखि कि आपण देबे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रो रेटिंग देखि आ जदि इन्वेस्टमेंट करूछन्ती देन इन्वेस्टमेंट कला बेले जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट रो बा जो सिक्युरिटी रो रेटिंग खराब अछि जदि आपण से इन्वेस्टमेंट कले देयर इज एवरी पॉसिबिलिटी दैट योर इन्वेस्टमेंट विल बी लॉस्ट दैट बाय रेटिंग देखि कि इन्वेस्टमेंट करा जिवो कारण हम प्रिंसिपल ले पढिले सेफ्टी प्रिंसिपल इज वन ऑफ द मेजर प्रिंसिपल्स which the banking institution need to follow. You know, for that purpose, they need to look at these credit ratings.
Sir, rating गोटे सेम ना?
What?
सेम रेटिंग देखि करियो.
सेम रेटिंग रेटिंग तो दिया है केते गोटे जगह रे अल्फाबेटिकल ऑर्डर दे केते गोटे जगह रे प्लस माइनस साइन ही दिया है ओडी A++ A B++ तो जेते अधिक रेटिंग ता आसबो आपनकर ability borrower ability to pay the loan amount or to pay back will be more. The rating ता basically relate करबी अपन परफॉर्मेंस यदि परफॉर्मेंस
नहीं सर रेटिंग सर गोटे ना माने जेमदी इन्वेस्टमेंट रे हमें जो रेटिंग जजमेंट करबा सेही रेटिंग हमें लोन ऊपर भी कंसीडर कर परबे गोटे रेटिंग
definitely we are here taking into consideration both loans and investment ना तो लोन पे जो रेटिंग अपन देखछन इन्वेस्टमेंट पे से रेटिंग देखि कारण इन्वेस्टमेंट रे जो बैंक इन्वेस्टमेंट करूची इट इज आल्सो इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ए क्रेडिट इन्वेस्टमेंट ओइसा सेठी इन्वेस्टमेंट होउची तामाने क्रेडिट दिया होउछ सेटु पैसा फेरी पाइबे लोन ने भी से करा होउछ पैसा दिया होउछ पैसा फेरी पाइबे तेणु जोठी की दउछंती तांकर रेटिंग ता जदि भल अछि ताले बैंक ऑटोमेटिकली इंश्योर करिवो जे एठाने पैसा ता फेरी पाइबे तेणु रेटिंग देखि दबाटा नियाती जरूरी तेणु जो क्रेडिट मैनेजमेंट करूछंती they should look at this credit rating. What is the credit risk rating being given by the international agencies to the organizations or to the institutes? तो एटा इंडिविजुअल लेवल देखा जाए कारण इंडिविजुअल की कौन से रेटिंग दिया जाए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कमर्शियल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो वाले रहले से मान को रेटिंग दिया जो ଆଉ जो सब सिक्योरिटीज यूज होची by the private companies in the security market to raise funds from the public सेगुडा के
सर
क्रेडिट
आरएआर और एएलएम रो फुल फॉर्म कौन सर
asset liability management
सर
अच्छा
जो
आरएआर
क्रेडिट रेटिंग मैनेजमेंट
कोडा कहली
जो
सर
क्रेडिट रेटिंग मैनेजमेंट जो अछि माने सर तो सब डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन अछि ना से क्रेडिट रेटिंग मैनेजमेंट रो सेमान सब जो रेटिंग दियन से रेटिंग जेमति कि मूडीज
Moody's तो रहउची गोटे रेटिंग एजेंसी Moody होउची गोटे इंटरनेशनल एजेंसी इंडिपेंडेंट एजेंसी केते गोटे जगह आपण देखियो कि कंपनी निजर मध्ये क्रेडिट रेटिंग एजेंसी करे सेगुडा को माने कंसीडरेशन मु नियंती को क्रेडिट रेटिंग एजेंसी रो रेटिंग ता को माने कंसीडरेशन नेबे दैट इज टू डिसाइडेड बाय द बैंक बोर्ड आफ्टर ड्यू कंसल्टेशन विद आरबीआई
थैंक यू सर
लास्ट पार्ट ता आसबा हमर लोन रिव्यू मैकेनिज्म loan review mechanism that means continuous monitoring and control you need to review the loan इस बेले बेले कोन होई कि जदि लोन आपण देइछन फॉर अ पीरियड ऑफ लेट्स सपोज 5 इयर्स कंटीन्यूअसली फॉर 2.5 इयर्स और 3 इयर्स लोन रिपेमेंट ही जाउची बट आफ्टर दैट आपण देखले जे लोन ता रिपेमेंट हो सो यू नीड टू फाइंड आउट द रीजन जो लोग नहीं छो although that loanee is having all the intentions to repay the loan but the loanee might not be in a position to repay the loan कारण 3 वर्ष भितर बिजनेस रो अवस्था कोन हो व्हाट विल बी द सिचुएशन और व्हाट विल बी द सर्कमस्टेंस द बिजनेस विल हैव टू फेस आफ्टर 2 इयर्स और 3 इयर्स डाउन द लाइन यू कैन नॉट प्रेडिक्ट आदि का डेट आपण प्रेडिक्ट करबे जे लोन दउछंती आपण सब जिनिस को कंसीडरेशन नै कि लोन ना देले बट फ्यूचर इज अनसर्टन जोडा हम भाबी थिबे दैट माइट नॉट हैपन जस्ट तर ऑपोजिट भी हे जाय पारे बिकॉज़ बिजनेस इज आल्सो डिपेंडेंट ऑन सम एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स if any changes occurs in the external factors that will definitely affect the business performance तो 3 वर्ष पर आपण देखछन काहे रिपेमेंट दउनी तो सेठी जे कि आपण जतळे स्टडी करिवे बा जतळे आपनकर सर्वे करिवे आपण फाइंड आउट करिवे जे although the loan is having all the intention to pay back the loan but the loan is not in a position तो कोन सेठी करि तो रिव्यू करि परिवे सेठी लोन ता 5 वर्ष पय देइछंती आपण कहबिरे नै हम एटा को बढ़ौछु 2 वर्ष आ आपनकर अमाउंट को कमौछु आ एई मेजर्स आपण दियंतु सो दैट यू कैन जनरेट सम रेवेन्यू एंड यू कैन पे बैक द 5 वर्ष जगह आपण टाइम पीरियड बढ़ाई परिवे इंस्टॉलमेंट अमाउंट कमई परिवे सेठी रिव्यू हो जदि पेमेंट हे गला तो तने दरकार नै किंतु लोन टा को रिव्यू करबा दरकार बाय द क्रेडिट डिपार्टमेंट सो क्रेडिट मैनेजमेंट ଗୋଟେ पार्ट मध्ये आसीबो आपनकर लोन रिव्यू मैकेनिज्म बुझ पले
जेमते कि कोरोना टाइम रे मोराटोरियम पीरियड दिया जायतला
कोडा
कोरोना टाइम रे मोराटोरियम पीरियड सर कोरोना टाइम रे मोराटोरियम पीरियड देइतला 6 मास रो हां
सेठी सेटा दिया हम मोराटोरियम पीरियड दिया हला गोटे बा समान को किछि डाउट एक्सटेंशन दिया हला बिकॉज़ सेई टाइम पीरियड रे समस्त अफेक्टेड हेतिले इंक्लूडिंग द बिजनेस कंसर्न्स जनरेशन ऑफ इनकम बहुत कमी थिला तेनु जतियो तांकर फुल इंटेंशन रहितला दबा पई लोन ता फेरे दबा पई बट बिकॉज़ ऑफ द सिचुएशंस दैट दे वर बीन फेस्ड विथ दे आर नॉट बीइंग एबल टू रिपे दैट्स व्हाई द बैंक बाय टेकिंग इनटू कंसीडरेशन दैट फैक्ट ultimately provided them with some time so that is the reason why the loan review mechanism must have to be there this is the purpose for which the loan review mechanism there you need to review डायरेक्टली केस कर परिबोनी कि डायरेक्टली से जो एसेट देइथिबो जो सिक्योरिटी रखतो ताको बिक्री कर दबो as a banking institution it is your responsibility you need to survey what's the reason for which the loan has not been paid जेतले कंटीन्यूअसली 2 वर्ष 2.5 वर्ष पेमेंट हेतिला वर्तमान काहे की बंद है व्हाट इज द रीजन
ତାଙ୍କର ଖାଇକି
सेटा न जानि कि आपण हठात एक्शन नै परिबे
ଅଜା ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ 5 ମିନିଟ୍ ଉଠିକି ପଟା କଣ କର ଆଉ ତୋର ଦିଟାଙ୍କର ଖାଇକି ହଁ
क्लियर
ଦିଦା
आर
ତମେ ଦି ଜଣ ଖାଇବ ତ
यू ऑल क्लियर
ହବ ତ
Sir,
ସରିନି ତ
sir, sir, last one.
लोन रिव्यू मैकेनिज्म
Okay.
କଦଳୀ ତ ପଇସା 2-3 ପଟ କରିଦବ କାଇଁ ବୁଢାଟାକୁ ହଇରାଣ କରୁଛୁ
यस वे अनम्यूट ये करके करो अनम्यूट के
then comes the principles principles of credit management what should be the principle that should be followed by the banking institutions while providing credit because on that depends the management of credit. So at the time of providing credit, the banking institutions need to follow certain principles. Some of the principles we have already pointed out while discussing the principles of banking because the credit is supposed to generate maximum revenue for the bank. The banks are meant to provide the loans as well as provide the credit facilities. Bank ne rahichandi particularly for that purpose. Either deposit accept karibe or credit debe. So generally ame dekhu je bank rahichi amaro financial requirement को fulfill kariya ba credit daba तो जेतने क्रेडिट बैंक दउछ को प्रिंसिपल को कंसीडरेशन को नबो the first principle is the principle of safety so this is the major principle which all the banking institutions need to look at we have already pointed it out why because they are dealing with public fund so wherever they are utilizing that fund for the purpose of credit they need to ensure that that fund will definitely be received back then comes the liquidity principle of liquidity it is basically related to the credit facilities which the banks basically provide in the form of investments. The liquidity means to whomsoever you are providing credit, you must have to ensure as a banking institution that the borrower is at all times in a position to repay the loan or you can liquidate that loan at any point of time. Then comes diversity. Diversity means you need to diversify your credit. You just cannot go on to provide credit to a particular section of the society. You need to diversify the credit. You cannot go on to provide credit only to the business persons because there the risk factor will be more. As we have already pointed out that the risk being attached to the credit needs to be monitored, needs to be identified, needs to be weighted, needs to be rated. Therefore, whenever the credit is supposed to be given by the banks, they need to maintain this principle of diversity. That means they need to diversify their credit facility. Diversify means they need to go on to provide credit to a number of entities. age, including individuals as well as business concepts. That is the reason why the retail loan concept emerged in the early 90s. And now you can say that banks are focusing more on retail loans than on business loans. Although from business loans they can get more interest, but because the business loans had put a major constraint in the performance of the bank in the form of NPAs. That's why they are shifting their focus more to the retail loan than to the commercial loans or business loans. Then fourth one is principle of stability. Principle of stability. Whatever credit facility as a bank you provide, you must have to ensure that the credit is stable. At no point of time, the credit is supposed to be unstable. It's a stable credit facility, and within the time period for which the credit has been sanctioned, the credit will definitely get repaid. That stability principle must have to be maintained. And the last but not the least is your profitability. This is highly required on the part of the commercial organizations like banks who needs to maintain their profitability. Because unless a bank ensures that it is making profit, it will not be able to attract more customers. It will not be able to maintain the existing customer base. And it will not be able to ensure its survival in the long run. So every bank needs to attain this profitability. So and profitability basically arises from the revenue that you generate. And as credit is supposed to generate the maximum revenue for the banks, so profitability principle is being attached to this credit management also. So they need to provide credit to ensure profitability, but at the same time they need to ensure that wherever they are providing credit facility, it will ultimately result in more profit for them.
Sir, point number 5 टा कौन?
Profitability. Yeah, these are the principles. So this is how the credit management can be done. So the banking portion of this unit is over. In the insurance portion, we have the nature of insurance contract, which we have already discussed in the first unit to some extent. And the nature of insurance contract is such that by nature it's a legal contract. So whatever components of a legal contract are there, all those components are supposed to be present in the insurance contract. That means minimum two parties have to be there. There has to be an agreement between the two parties. There should not be any pressure on any of the parties to enter into the agreement. There has to be some consideration behind the uh, agreement which can entice both the parties to go for the agreement. And because the basis of insurance is risk, so the nature of insurance contract is that the risk should not be very small. Because if risk is small, it can be managed by the individuals. There is no need to manage it with the help of insurance by making payment to the insurance companies. So the risk should not be very small. And generally the cost of the insurance should not be prohibited. That means at whatever price the insurance contract is supposed to be made, the price should be affordable by the insured. So by nature of contract, we mean it's a legal contract, it's a unitary contract, and it involves two parties where both the parties enter into an agreement, and all the components of a legal contract are being applicable to this. Now coming to another aspect which is there is your insurance contract versus wagering contract. By wagering contract, we generally mean a conditional contract. It is basically in the form of a gambling. In insurance contract, we have pointed out that it's a contract between the insured and the insurer to enter into an agreement for the subject matter for which the insurance is supposed to be taken. And as the subject matter is being associated with some risk, so the insurance is supposed to be taken against that risk. In wagering contract, what happened? It's a conditional contract. Just like your betting activities, if you are betting with somebody, that if this happens, I will give you 100 rupees. So if that doesn't happen, you will not give 100 rupees. Or rather, the other person might give you 100 rupees. So just like a gambling. But in insurance, what happens? If the risk happens, then only the insurer will pay you will compensate you with the loss. So generally, in insurance contract, there exists an insurable interest between the subject matter of the insurance and the insured. But in wagering contract, there is no such insurable interest. There should not be any sort of legal rule because by law, this contract is a void contract. It's an illegal contract because it involves illegal activities like gambling or betting. So we generally go on to find out what is the difference between these two. So here insurable interest is applicable, here insurable interest is not applicable. It's a pure contract, it's a conditional contract. Insurance contract is basically been done for a useful purpose, but wagering contract is not done for a useful purpose. For any purpose, you can enter into a wagering contract, but it's a void contract. Insurance contract is a legal contract, valid contract. It is a void contract. It's an illegal contract. So you need to understand the difference between these two. Clear? I will give you the second unit notes today. To those whom I have already given the first unit notes, please share it with all of your friends. Will it be okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So those who have given me the phone number to whom I have already given the first unit, I will give the second unit notes today.
Sir, please give your number, sir.
Have you not got the material for the first unit?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
No, sir, no, sir.
Sir, I received, sir.
Sir, already share in the group.
No, please share it in your group.
Friends, we have already shared in your group में
हेलो
already
सर
share किया हुआ है.
हेलो सर
हाँ,
सर दीपक सर को सेंड कर दियନ୍ତୁ दीपक सर ऑफिशियल ग्रुप रे सेंड कले समस्त पाई परिबे
ଆପଣ ମାନେ ନାହାନ୍ତି ଗ୍ରୁପ କରିନାହାନ୍ତି?
ग्रुप सर अछु किंतु
Yes,
सर
sir.
सर बहुत पिला
ସବୁ ପିଲା ସାର୍ ନାହାନ୍ତି।
तो दीपक
सर
सर
हमको ग्रुप रे ऐड करना थी सर
ହଉ ତାହେଲେ ଠିକ ଅଛି ମୁଁ ଦୀପକ ସାର୍ ଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଦେବି ନହେଲେ ସେ କରିଦେବେ।
आज्ञा आज्ञा सर सब बेस्ट दीपक सर को
सर
देदेबे
ये ऑफिशियल ग्रुप रे प्लीज सेंड दिस ऑफिशियल ग्रुप
ହଁ ସେଇଟା ତ ମୁଁ କରିପାରିବିନି ଦୀପକ ସାର୍ ଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଦେବି ସେ କରିଦେବେ।
आज्ञा सर थैंक यू सर
सर
ଆଜି
फर्स्ट
ଦେଇଦେବି
एंड सेकंड यूनिट रे सर दे दे।
ଠିକ ଅଛି ଦୀପକ ସାର୍ ଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଦେବି କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ ଦେଇଦେବି ନହେଲେ।
ओके सर
थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू सर
ଆମ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ପଠେଇଦେବେ ମତେ